It's the Where Broadway Meets Talent podcast. Each month, we take a look at the performing arts scene in the Rogue Valley and visit with the artists who bring the shows to life. From Camelot Theater in Talent, here's your host, Brian O'Connor.
And welcome to the third episode of the Where Broadway Meets Talent podcast. I'm Brian O'Connor. Great to have you here. We are going to have a lot of fun with this episode. We're going to be talking to part of the creative team as well as the star of Camelot Theater's current production of Scapino, which runs through October the 6th. It's an incredibly entertaining and funny show. And literally, just by its very nature, it's a different show every night. So we're going to get into that a little bit as well. Also, later in the podcast, we will have a visit with Camelot veteran performer Erik Connolly, who has performed in over a dozen shows throughout the years. Got his start back in 2007 with the Spitfire Grill. Also appeared in Evita, Jesus Christ Superstar, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, Mary Poppins, and others. And our Spotlight series, he is no stranger to that. He was in Peter, Paul, and Mary, Simon and Garfunkel, Glenn Campbell, and Roy Orbison back in 2015, which became our biggest selling Spotlight at that time. And they brought that show back in 2022. Coming up in October, he will be starring in Spotlight on Cat Stevens. So Erik will be dropping by a little bit later on. Right now, let's dive into our current production of Scapino. I have the honor of being joined by Alex Boyles, the director, Jonathan Luke Stevens, who is a commedia dell'arte expert, and he's a choreographer, he's an actor, he's a director, he's all of the above. And we're going to talk with him, as well as Barret O'Brien, a very multifaceted performer, a professor, and a great entertainer who plays the titular role of Scapino in the show. So welcome, everybody.
Hi.
Yeah, great to be here.
Yeah.
So, Alex, we're going to start with you here directing this show. You've directed so many great productions around the Valley.
Oh, thank you.
Different theaters, and you've done everything from small, intimate pieces like Next to Normal, for example, here at Camelot, to one of my favorites, Clue at Oregon Cabaret Theater, which was totally on the opposite spectrum. And you come into a show like this. Tell me about this experience. Have you ever worked on a show quite like this before?
I've worked on a commedia piece back when I was an undergrad in college, but it was as an actor, right? So it's different, right? Working as a director and working as an actor, they're different beasts. But I had a little bit of background in it. And, you know, you mentioned Clue, and like Clue's a farce, right? And commedia has a lot of farcical notions in it. So I knew I was versed in that type of comedy and that type of physicality, but I also knew I had a good team to help me know the ins and outs of commedia itself, which was a good thing for me since I was brought in, you know, kind of after the process had already started.
I was going to say, Michael J. Hume originally was directing, and he had to take a step back, and then you came in 2 or 3 weeks into the process.
Yeah, that's right.
What is that like as a director when you come into a project a little bit late in the game when obviously it's been cast, they've been rehearsed, and everyone's starting to sort of gel, and that story is really starting to take shape?
Terrifying, to just be blunt about it. It was genuinely terrifying. But again, it was one of those things where I knew I needed to jump in and just be a part of this group, right? A director's work, you know, starts well before rehearsal starts. So you say that I was brought in 2 or 3 weeks after rehearsal started. If I had been directing the show, I would have been working on it for months before that already. So the amount of time that I lost or just never had was enormous. And so that first week was terrifying. I needed to read the script that I didn't know. I needed to meet the cast, some of which I didn't know. I needed to meet all of my designers and my directing team who I didn't know, and get things that weren't my artistic vision, but I had to deal with them. Like my first meeting with my set designer was like, here's the set that we've pretty much already built. So I hope you like it. and luckily I did, right? I mean, luckily this process was fantastic, but that first week, absolutely terrifying.
How did the cast react to you coming in?
It was varied. There were some people that I've worked with before, and so they knew my abilities as a director. They were confident in that. But some people I'd never worked with before, and so I would say it was a little mixed, especially because of the circumstances of how it happened. Right, it was kind of sudden. No one really knew what was happening, and then all of a sudden, I'm in the room and saying like, and now I'm the director, but I'm not going to change anything, but I'm not your original director, so obviously it's going to be a little different. So
sure.
Those first few days, I feel like it was a little bit touch and go, but I had enough people on the cast, and especially my team, Jonathan here especially, behind me, which was really nice. And then after that, I think once we got started, people realized like, oh, no, he knows what he's doing, and I trust him. And that's what you need in a director, is that trust.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, we've talked about commedia dell'arte, this art form. And for those who don't know what that is, I want to talk to Jonathan Luke Stevens, who is very well versed in this art form. And you and I talked last week, I think it was right before the final dress rehearsal. And you and I actually hadn't seen each other in 2 or 3 years. And I had forgotten that the last time we did see each other, you were getting ready to leave to go to Italy to study commedia dell'arte.
That's right.
Tell me a little bit, first of all, what is this and what your studies were like abroad?
Yeah. Commedia dell'arte is a Renaissance theater form, early 1500s, its first kind of origins, that started in Italy. And it kind of really became sort of the popular theater form of the day. It was also the prototype for farce and modern day comedy, cartoon, things like that, slapstick. It was also the first instance where you really see a professional theater start to form. Professional actors, professional productions that weren't rooted in maybe civic duty or religious rites or religious services, but you had people that specialized in entertainment, and they said, I as professional actor put on show, you give me money, I entertain you, you sit back, I take care of it all. So this is really the beginning of the professional theater as we know it. So it's a really old form of theater and storytelling, and a really fun form of theater and storytelling. And my training in Italy was really wonderful. I got to train underneath a very revered teacher, Maestro Antonio Fava, who is one of the leading scholars and experts on commedia dell'arte in Italy. He's also a very accomplished mask maker as well as a performer, and he's actually part of a lineage of performers. His father was a performer as well, so he's of a long line of learned craft. And he has a school in a town called Reggio Emilia, which is in the Emilia-Romagna region, right near Bologna and Modena and Parma, so lots of good food all around. But a part of Italy that you don't maybe normally go to, very rustic countryside. And he has a school there, and they do summer programs and things like that. And I got accepted into his summer conservatory program, and for a little over a month studied the form and kind of culminated with the final project of presenting a show for the public, for the town, and it was amazing. And as you said, I was just about to, last time we saw each other, I was just about to leave to go do that and spend a month in Italy. And so
that's amazing.
It's an amazing full circle moment now to be back working on this project here, with you. Yeah,
a lot of audience interaction with this show.
Very much so, and that's a core piece of commedia dell'arte. In the origins of the form, it would have been done in maybe a marketplace. So it was very much about making sure your audiences were going to stop, you were going to hold their attention, and reaching out to them. So a lot of that was done by really contacting them directly. And this, we see this in Shakespeare's theater as well of the day, of the same kind of coming out of that Renaissance period of theater. There was no fourth wall, and you were really storytelling with the audience, and it was an exciting form. Also, it was a masked form. So while our show is unmasked, and the commedia eventually evolves into unmasked, but in the early inceptions, it starts as a masked form where performers would wear masks. And Part of this was to capture the eye of the audience to make sure they knew, oh, this is something different. This is not real life. This is a show going on. We should watch.
Right.
But also just as its own mask making as its own artistic form. And when you look at these really beautiful Italian leather masks in play, as we call them, you're always wanting to share with the audience the mask so they can see the angles and directions, and they're watching the mask shift in front of them. And a funny thing happens in our brain. We end up painting narrative onto it. And so there's a really magical thing that starts to happen when you're in that masked form. So you're always wanting to share that mask with the audience. So that's also on a technical level, you're really turning out and wanting to connect in that way and play for the audience. And at the end of the day, one of the core values of it is, everything is for the audience. It's all for the enjoyment of the audience. Going back to the roots of I, as professional, am here and know just the perfect thing for you, audience. And you just have to sit back and enjoy,
And the masks are beautiful.
Yeah.
If you ever get a chance to see them, they are just phenomenal works of art in and of themselves, let alone when someone is playing with them.
Yeah.
So, Jonathan, you've been performing since you were a kid, something like 10 years old. And then right after college, you get invited to Oregon Shakespeare Festival, where you are still performing today.
Yeah.
So you've done a lot of different types of theater over the years. Would you say commedia is one of your favorite art forms in the theater world?
Yeah, I think so. I think it certainly has become. It was not a direction I ever thought of myself as going as a child. I didn't, as a little 10-year-old, be like, one day I'm going to study commedia dell'arte and be a.
I don't know many 10-years-olds that do say that. Actually,
they're all in Italy. Isn't it?
Yeah, they're all in Italy. I think that there's something that also. I joke about that, but also, at that 10-year-old did want to study commedia dell'arte and didn't know it at the time. I think that it aligns with a lot of things of. It's a very actor-driven form, and I am such a big advocate for the actor at the center of this craft of theater and that actor-audience relationship. And in the commedia dell'arte, the actors were the writers, the company owners, the directors, sometimes the costumers. They did everything. And multi-hyphenate artists that were musicians and jugglers and dancers. And I just think it's such a beautiful concept. And I think it's something I strive for in my own artistry. And it's something that I love. I think with theater, it's about the humanity. It's about the human. Quite literally, you have a flesh and blood human in front of you, and the commedia dell'arte for me exploits and wrings the towel dry of every ounce of what it means to do that in front of an audience, and just have the human body be the tool and means of expression and storytelling. And what it can do to an audience and what joy it can bring.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Barret O'Brien joins us. He plays Scapino in Scapino, and you're making your Camelot debut with us. So welcome.
Thank you.
So I want to talk about your background a little bit and kind of what you do, because you do a lot of different things in theater arts and performing.
Well, that sentence actually says a lot about what theater arts are. If you are committed to having a life in the theater arts, my experience is you want to be able to do a lot of things. And I grew up in a theater family. My parents ran a theater growing up, and I learned that pretty early. So if you don't get cast in one play, say, hey, I know how to make costumes. We've got a costume designer. Hey, I can come be on book for people. There's a lot of ways that people can join a theater production other than being on stage. And I love that about the company feel. One of our actors in the company the other day said, we are company as, and I'm not going to say the words she said after that, but just you insert a really big curse word is what she said. And she's a 20-year-old who's in school at SOU, and I think you could replace the word family for company there. When a production such as Scapino, it turns into like we're all hands on deck. And so that's one of the reasons I'm a multi-hyphenate behind my name, because I love doing it. I love being in the room in any way I can serve.
Sure. What has this experience been like for you so far?
A delight from go. I was brought in the process pretty early. Michael called me when he was still gathering the team. Danny oceaning the team is a verb that comes to mind. He called me, and I was in Texas at the time, which is perfect, like for the Danny Ocean thing. And he kind of told me about the story, and I immediately was feeling a big yes. Even though I had been taking a break from the stage for a while to teach and do TV and film. But it just sounded like great medicine for the world at this moment. The play is, at its core, its mission is to spread joy. Truly. I mean, there's a great story, there's great characters, but at the end of the day, it's just a big joy pizza. And I love serving that pizza every night. And the rehearsals were that too. Like, I really am in a process, in a state of my process where I'm not looking to, like, rehearsals aren't about opening a show. Like, the rehearsals are the thing. And I enjoyed every day. And I enjoyed so much trying to make Alex and Jonathan laugh. It was always like a part of my thinking, like, these dudes have seen this play 4,394 times. And so every day I'd have a little mission of like, I wonder if I could get them. I wonder if I could get them. And I would do things that I knew weren't going to be in the show, but I'm like, that's just to see if I can get those dudes over there. That was a delight. So every day it's a delight, and it continues to be. Including this conversation right now. And I just wanted to piggyback on a couple of things that Alex and Jonathan said, just for anyone listening, though we talk a lot about commedia, this play is not commedia. It's inspired by, so you won't see any masks. And I don't want anybody to be pushed back from that. There is a lineage from commedia that's gone into our present day. I would take that into the Marx Brothers movies and their stage work. I would take that into like the Peter Sellers Pink Panther movies. I would take it into the Richard Pryor, Gene Wilder movies. I would take it even into like the Dumb and Dumber Land with Jim Carrey movies.
Absolutely,
so we're of that ilk too. It's very much storytelling for the masses. We've had children come to the play. I've looked out and seen just giddy, wide-eyed 11-year-olds. Like, what is this?
Yeah.
What is happening right now? My daughter, who's 8, came, and she's now, Dad, I'm coming once a week. I'm like, I don't know if that's going to happen, but I'll let you dream that. But that feels great. It feels great.
That.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, and we talk about the audience interaction, and especially with you. I mean, you're out in literally in the audience some nights, so it is different every night. What is that experience like to break that fourth wall and actually be right there with the audience?
Well, I'll start with modesty. My grandma always said, "It's not good for your ego; it's good for your modesty." The second night of the show, I ran through an aisle. I was like, this looks like a good aisle. I ran through. Immediately, I saw this very kind woman working very diligently to move her crutches. And I was like, this is the worst aisle I could have. I'm like, please don't move your crutches. So I had to climb over and then 2 nights ago, I brought out a chocolate for an audience member, and I went to throw it to them, not knowing they had a broken arm. And the chocolate bounced off of her cast.
Oh, my gosh.
Yes, and she was like, I'll get it. I was like, please. I was like, okay. So it's delightful because you can't, once you, I don't know how many people sit in the audience at Camelot, but once you bring that many human beings in, you're all bets are off. So there's another part where I asked him to bark like a dog, and he started going, and I was like, I'm pretty sure that's a seal. So it's great because it makes me not be able to sit back on my heels, and we're all in this together, and it keeps you very modest and awake.
Yeah, that's where the comic gold is too,
Absolutely.
When that chocolate bounced off her cast,
I was just thinking that.
I think that's probably one of the funnier things I've ever seen. Anyway,
You can't write it.
Bink.
This is the thing I do love about the form is that it inspires that sense of play that you get to have every night with the audience, and there's just comic gold to be had. Jokes we could have never in a million years planned, or bits we could have never planned that just happen so beautifully and naturally and are the funniest things,
Yeah, because again, it's about creating with the audience. It's not about for the audience. It's truly with the audience, and that's been a delight to watch every single night.
We are talking with the cast and crew here of Scapino, now running through October 6th at Camelot. Alex Boyles, director, Jonathan Luke Stevens, commedia dell'arte consultant, choreographer, and Barret O'Brien, who plays Scapino. So how much would you say of the show is actually scripted and how much is improv, if you had to kind of break it down? Because there's a lot of things that happen differently every night.
Yeah, that's a tough question to answer. So I would say that if we take Barret out of this consideration, 98% scripted, 2% improvised. But if you come see it, and you absolutely should, I would pay just to watch one particular scene every single night, and I'm not going to give it away. But if we include Barret in the conversation, it's probably 50-50. And not in like a he's ruining the script or changing the script. It's not that at all. He's still following the script and we're hitting all of the plot points. But again, creating with an audience, you have to be able to improvise. You have to take things in, and when a chocolate bounces off of someone's cast, you have to react to it, right? I mean, if you don't react, that's a failure in my eyes.
So I was there that night and saw that, and it was the funniest thing ever.
This is the first I'm hearing of it, and I'm mad I missed it.
Just for the listeners, don't come expecting a chocolate to bounce off a cast when you come and see it. That was a once, you missed it.
That's
you
right.
missed it.
But you might see something
But you might see something
better.
new,
Yeah,
exactly.
And we even, on opening night, we had some people talking about a specific physical moment that happened, and I told them that was improvised tonight. I've never seen them do that before. They might not ever do it again.
Yeah.
And they were floored.
Yeah.
They were like, but it was so funny.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, but they work with each other and with the audience and create something every night that's just as funny.
Yeah. We use some techniques. I like to play games. And we use hidden games where they're games that the actors are conscious of, but maybe the audience is not aware of, such as like we'll play tag on stage together. Like actually play tag on stage together. The audience isn't aware we're playing tag, but the actors know it. We're keeping the lines going, and you get this dynamic chase scene, or you get this dynamic moment all of a sudden. So that's just one example of many different techniques we use to kind of give a container give form to the thing, and then allow the actors to play within that with each other. So there are moments in the show where they are really creating it in that moment for you. Yeah.
It's pretty amazing to watch because improv can be very difficult for some actors, but this group seems to just jump at the chance to be able to do something when that opportunity presents itself, and they execute it so flawlessly. It's like it is scripted, part of the show, when it's really not in some cases.
And like Jonathan, just to piggyback off what Jonathan just said, and your point about improv, like I personally have always hated improv. Like I've taken improv classes and I've not had a good time, and it's because I don't think I was ever really taught correctly, because improv isn't about just doing whatever. It's about knowing what your restrictions are and playing within your restrictions, right? So like we've set some restrictions on some of our scenes, but we let them play within those, and then you have total freedom. Like it's a different animal, and it's much more fun, in my opinion.
Right. Well, and it works. It definitely works for the show. I want to talk a little bit about the collaboration between Jonathan and Alex here, how you guys work together to stage this and create this incredible show.
I mean, luckily, again, I was brought in halfway through, but Jonathan and I knew each other.
Yeah.
We'd worked together before, so we already had a relationship, and luckily a good relationship.
Yeah.
He says, looking over at Jonathan, hopefully.
Yes, of course.
But being brought in and being the director and not being a commedia specialist, but having to like mold a show, I relied on Jonathan a lot. There were full rehearsals where I was like, Jonathan, do this. And he was like, absolutely. And then he would do it and look at me and be like, is this what we're looking for? And I'd be like, yes or no. There were some things we disagreed on, but 99% of the time we agreed on most things, I would say.
Yeah. It was a really, really fruitful collaboration. And when they were looking at bringing someone in, I was really worried, about who they were going to get, because we had done, you were just saying a minute ago about how impressed you were at the cast's ability to jump in. Like those early days of rehearsals, we did a lot of company building. We did a lot of game work. We really did a lot of company building. I took them through a commedia intensive kind of night. We did a lot of just unifying so that we could all be in a space where we could be brave and kind of like set down the good rules and kind of put ourselves in a space where we could go after the comedy in that way. So a new energy coming into that. Were they going to vibe with that? Were they going to come in and try to just, change everything, or what was it going to be? Well, when I found out it was going to be Alex, I immediately just had the biggest weight off my shoulder, because I knew it was all going to be fine. As he said, like, he's got such a wonderful eye for farce and comedy. I knew right off the bat, I was like, we couldn't have had a better replacement. And that was the case. I mean, he was so open with allowing me to come in and try my stuff, and was such a good eye to bounce ideas off of as well. He was really good at being like, no, that doesn't work. And having me being like, yeah, you're right, it doesn't work. Great, damn it. Okay, let me figure something else out. Sometimes you need that eye. I much rather that than being isolated as a director, to be honest. I need to Barret too. I mean, I think we looked to the cast as well to bounce ideas off of, because, even me and Alex, we don't always know, like, how does it feel to y'all? What's it feeling like up there? Here's what what's feeling like out here. Is that accurate? Sometimes they'd be at odds, and we'd go, okay, let's figure this out. Sometimes we'd be like, yeah, all right, this is it. Boom. We know, we're all together. So I don't know. It was just a really wonderful. Everyone was super collaborative in a beautiful way,
absolutely.
And we all, like, the moments where we did disagree, it was always in this, like, we all knew the show was. We just wanted the show to be the best that it could be, and so it was all in this really constructive kind of energy and passionate energy that I really was grateful for to have in the room. Everyone really cared, and that was a beautiful thing.
I think collaboration is key, because I think we've probably all seen shows where that's not been there, and you see the results, and it's not always good. And so when you have that collaboration, and not only between, directors, but involving the cast in that collaborative process, it really shines. And we see that on stage with Scapino. Definitely. So.
Well, and this form begs for that, right? Like, you can go see other forms of theater, realistic, naturalistic, whatever. And yeah, the collaboration might not be there, but it might not hurt it too much. But to take a show like Scapino in this form, inspired by commedia and farce, and just... You need everyone on board and everyone playing with each other and connected. And Jonathan and the cast accomplished that before I even got in the room. So I just had to slot myself in, and I was lucky for that.
Right. Barret, have you done a show like this before, where you get this much freedom to be able to, interact with the audience and do this kind of performing?
I have, yeah.
Okay.
I have. And I got to study commedia with a great teacher named Christopher Bays. I studied with him for 3 years, and then we did an original commedia piece in New York called Maybe Even Tammy, where I played the Pantalone character. And I was let off leash pretty far, maybe to the point that they cut the leash. Even there was a drum set on stage, so I was allowed to play drums as Pantalone, which is a funny image. I've been inside this gift before. So it feels like a lot of freedom and very little... nerves about it. We're being held by a really smart script that one of the co-authors actually was in when they did it in the 70s. So I can tell by the writing that he was building himself very strong scaffolding to stand on. And I feel that consistently while we're rehearsing and in performance, that I actually don't have to do maybe as much as one might think. There's very strong foundation laid because there was an actor-author as part of that conversation. And just going back a couple of paragraphs, talking about when Alex came in, I had that moment too, because it was only really 24 hours where we didn't know who the director was going to be. And my only communication to the universe is like, I was not looking for someone to come in who was just pedal to the metal on the comedy. I really wanted a director. And I knew Alex's work. I had no idea it was going to be Alex, but I came in the next day, and he might remember this. I just threw my arms up in the air. And I just stood there like I had scored a touchdown.
I do remember. It was
yes,
great.
because I know Alex knows story, and he doesn't just do comedy, he does drama, and he's also an actor, and he's also a producer. And I immediately knew that it was someone I could be in conversation with about story, because yes, I love comedy, but I don't think there's any reason for Scapino to think he's in a comedy. The reality is the story has to work, and really what I think the characters are after is truth. They just happen to be living in a very heightened situation. But I think the quest for truth was always in the room too, during rehearsals and also during performance.
Yeah. That's incredible. I do want to mention a couple of things here. We don't have the designers here, but I want to talk about the set, the lighting design, and the costume design. Nathan Anaki did the set on this, and it's incredible. Kate Landon on lights and Andrew Beyer on costumes. I've never seen a set quite like this on this stage, and I've been here a lot of years. And the fact that we have party lights going out over the audience to the back of the house, that is absolutely amazing. When you walk in, you feel like you are in that world, and it's incredible.
Yeah, that was that. Again, I was shown the set and was like, I hope you like it, and I loved it. And again, the reason I loved it is because it wasn't creating a separate space from the audience. The whole intention of the set design and the lighting design specifically was to combine those two spaces and make them one, so that when you're sitting in the house, you're not thinking, oh, the funny's happening up there and I'm watching out here. You're thinking, we're doing this together. And so the lights going out over the audience. We've got clothes hanging in the aisles that you're walking through to get to your seats, right? Like it's all one. We've got a big dock that thrusts out into the audience's space so that it's literally bridging that gap. And I love it. Every night I saw it transform and get more and more like that space, I just fell in love with it.
Right. Absolutely. Scapino runs through October the 6th. Go to CamelotTheater.org, get your tickets, and you're going to want to see this more than once, as we've been talking about. It is different every night. You never know what you're going to get. Alex Boyles, Jonathan Luke Stevens, and Barret O'Brien, thank you so much for coming in and chatting with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
It is the Where Broadway Meets Talent podcast, and our next guest is certainly no stranger to Camelot Theater. He made his debut in 2007 with the Spitfire Grill, which he co-starred with the great Shirley Patton and former Camelot Theater artistic director Livia Janice. And went on to appear in over a dozen shows since then, including Evita, Jesus Christ Superstar, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, South Pacific Mary Poppins, and several of our spotlights, including Peter, Paul and Mary, Simon and Garfunkel, Glenn Campbell, Roy Orbison in 2015, which became the biggest selling spotlight in the theater's history. And we brought that show back in 2022. And coming up next month, he will be Cat Stevens in Spotlight on Cat Stevens. It is Erik Connolly. Hello.
Hello, Brian. Thanks for having me.
You bet.
Yeah.
Spotlight on Cat Stevens runs October 10th through November 3rd. And welcome back to Camelot.
It's good to be back.
And you're writing the show, you're directing the show, you're starring in the show. You are the show.
Yeah, who's responsible for this? That's my question.
Tell me a little bit about how you got started in performing.
Oh gosh, wow! I didn't know you're going to ask deep questions.
Oh yeah, I know, right?
Psychoanalytic questions. Well, let's see here. I recall that we had this folk singer guitarist who would go through the schools sort of as a component to the education. And he would sing these folk songs like, was it Turkey in the Straw or Chicken in the Straw or whatever that was, and all kinds of Americana. And I was just really captivated by this Southern gentleman and music and guitar. And I was probably, second grade, third grade or something. And I remember the teacher sent a note home to my parents that said, Erik has to stop humming during class. And so fast forward to, then I got into playing guitar in hard rock bands at the age of like 15, 16. And then I pivoted to auditioning for the musical, which was Pirates of Penzance in high school. And I caught the musical theater bug. And here we are.
Here we are.
Now we're not doing musical theater. That's okay.
That's okay. You did your share of it here at Camelot over the years, too. Do you have a favorite show that you did here?
Oh, gosh. Let me see. Evita, probably.
That was a great show.
Fun show.
Yeah.
And great juicy character. Right.
Another one of my favorites, you were in Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, which was actually a replacement show that we brought on in 2016, and just a very, very funny show.
So funny, elegant, a little naughty.
Yeah, a little bit.
Great music.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to do that again.
That'd be a fun
Someday.
show. That would be a fun show to bring back.
It was so much fun.
And of course, you've done your share of spotlights. I mentioned just a few that you've done here. The Roy Orbison show is a very special show that we brought in 2015. It sold out every single night, became the biggest selling spotlight, and it held that record until this year when Spotlight on ABBA surpassed that. But we also brought that show back in 2022, so you got to do it a couple of times. Favorite memories from that show?
Oh, gosh. Well, it's what's my favorite memory period in terms of performing, because I love Roy Orbison's music so much. I loved the script. It was written by Kathy Noah, who was at that point, I think, the editor of the Mail Tribune.
Right.
And boy, what a tragic life Roy Orbison had. That was before he wrote those mournful, heart-achingly lyrics. But I think just how can I say? I think when the show culminates in you got Pretty Woman, okay, and then the encore, so to speak, you got it, and there's just all that euphoria because we're ending with such a bang. I remember how, again, euphoric, exhilarating it felt to approach that point in the show every night. Yeah, everyone was just so happy.
Oh, the audience, they were dancing in the aisles. Absolutely. We had to tell them to go sit down. I do remember that. That was an amazing spotlight. And of course, you've done all these other spotlights as well. And now coming up in October, Spotlight on Cat Stevens. So what has his music meant to you?
Well, it's interesting. He's one of those artists where I think he came to me kind of late. Of course, I was aware of Cat Stevens. I always thought his name was interesting. I recall my parents listened to his records. I have evidence of that, and that they have an old dusty Teaser and the Fire Cat vinyl. And, I remember it sort of came together. I will be honest for once with you, Brian. I recall thinking, who hasn't Camelot done? Who hasn't Camelot featured as a spotlight artist? And then, kind of hearing, I think I heard Moonshadow come on, what is that called? Pandora or something. And I thought, who can write something like that? That song is so timeless. The lyrics are so incredible. And then, what about this song? Oh, Father and Son. He wrote Father and Son. And then I made the error that everyone else makes, thinking that he wrote Cats in the Cradle.
Oh, right.
Because of the suggestive first name. So then I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to look up this guy's history. What's his story about? Aha. Very unique story. Many know of his conversion, which it's a religious conversion that happened in the late 70s that I would say would be a kind of a spoiler alert territory for some. So I will not say it. I will not vouchsafe it unto us at this point. But I thought, well, all his philosophical lyrics and his sort of wanderings and his the way his lyrics contain more questions and answers made a lot of sense given his story, his trajectory.
Right.
And how he ultimately decided to make a big step that really shocked the world.
Yeah.
So I think I think the combination of story and music is really what got me. Yeah.
A lot of people are excited about this particular spotlight, and you are also writing the script, as I mentioned. So when you're going through this and you're putting this story together, was there anything that really jumped out at you in his story? I don't want to give away too much, but anything that kind of jumped out that you went, oh wow, I didn't realize that.
Yes, and that's a great question. He had two. Well. Yeah, I can tell. I can do a little bit of spoiler here. He had two near-death experiences in his life. I'll tell you about the first one because we touch on it. We more than touch on it. About midway through the first act, he was on a tour with a very diverse bill of the Walker Brothers, Jimi Hendrix, Engelbert Humperdinck, and Cat Stevens. And this is when he was kind of that, manufactured pop idol. And he was partying hard, and he was soothing his stress and his vis-a-vis his artistic clashes with his producer, who wanted him to do this kind of fluffy music, and so he over imbibed, and he wound up in the hospital with tuberculosis, for which he received, I think, 4 months of convalescence, and then I think ultimately recovery was about a year. That completely changed this artist. So I use the word change. That's exactly it, to finally answer your question. Change is a word that may not sound unique, but I think the through line or the theme of this script, this artist, he personifies change. I mean, he personifies, that name Cat, for example, those cat-like eyes that his girlfriend said he had. That's why he took that stage name. He had these kind of searching eyes. You can see it in his lyrics. You can see it in his choices. And I think it was just this profound sense of searching and finding where he belonged, and that is laid bare in his lyrics. Yeah. So change is the theme.
Talking with Erik Connolly, who is going to be starring in Spotlight on Cat Stevens, which opens October 10th, runs through November 3rd at Camelot. What kind of a show, can people expect to see when this thing opens?
Well, first of all, iconic songs, great backup singers, great band. I'm going to do my best as a singer.
You always do, so yeah, no surprise.
Very nice, sort of a folk rock, genre. And I think they're going to see, just as I was saying earlier, a very unique story of change that maybe illuminates the lyrics, maybe makes sense. I think they're going to see something that's very inspirational, and that maybe they'll come away thinking, that is one of the most unique artists I've ever come across. I didn't quite understand some things about him that were lingering, and now I do.
So who do we have for your musical director on the show?
Oh, we have Carl Iverson, who is fantastic. He's a real Rogue Valley treasure.
Oh, yeah.
He's a legend before his time.
Just came off of the Spotlight on Jimmy Buffett show that we just wrapped up here a little bit ago.
And you
have backup singers too.
Absolutely. We have Lindsay Nashington and Julia Funk, who are both excellent performers, excellent singers.
Julia Funk started her career at Camelot when she was about 10 years old in our conservatory program.
Very interesting.
And went to college, came back, and she's been back for several years now, and she's been doing all kinds of big things at other theaters, not only at Camelot, but Oregon Cabaret. And wow, you have a lot of talent on that stage.
And I thought to feature the backup singers in a wonderful solo of, it's called Into White, which is a Cat Stevens song.
Okay.
Of course. That was covered by Carly Simon. And so they'll get, one or two choice little solo turns here and there.
Right. Yeah. And you're directing this too. How do you balance, because you're doing basically all of it here. You're writing, starring in, and directing. How do you find that balance?
Well, first of all, make sure to ask questions when you need to. I don't have to always know the answer. A balance would be to use the skills of people around you, and put your ego aside. Although there's always some ego, right? But, to realize there are some things that are kind of not quite in my bailiwick or in my area of expertise. And so I think that if I look at it as a team approach, a collaborative approach, I think I got some vision for this, but now I need people who are a little better in other areas in the technical department, and I think we're going to be okay.
Yeah, we're going to have full video projections in this. We're going to have all kinds of other elements in the show, as well as we do with all of our spotlights. So I think it's going to be an absolutely incredible show. And you certainly, have a proven track record here at Camelot with some of these other spotlights. Particularly, we'll go back to the Roy Orbison show that, sold out every single night. And so much so that people for a few years were saying, when are you going to bring it back? When are you going to bring it back? And so in 2022, we were able to do that and restage it. And it was great.
And it may not be the last time.
Ooh.
I may have one more left in me.
You think? That would be fantastic, because I still know of people who weren't able to come to the second time too, who would love to see it. So, Spotlight on Cat Stevens, starring Erik Connolly, runs October 10th through November 3rd here at Camelot. Tickets are on sale now. Just go to CamelotTheater.org and you can get more information on the show. Get your tickets. Make sure you don't get left out of this incredible spotlight. Erik, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it.
And that wraps up another edition of Where Broadway Meets Talent. I want to thank all of our guests, Alex Boyles, Jonathan Luke Stevens, and Barret O'Brien from Scapino, and also Erik Connolly from the upcoming Spotlight on Cat Stevens. Next month, we will sit down with writer Cole Emerson and Haley Jane Forsyth, who are directing the winter show at Camelot Theater, The Sound of Music. We'll also chat with Camelot's executive director, Dan Hauser, and Camelot artistic director, Gwen Overland, as we begin to look forward to the 2025 season. I'm Brian O'Connor. Thanks for listening. Make sure to subscribe to us on Spotify, and we will talk to you again next month.